about a great line in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to the effect that core of our problem is selfishness and self-centeredness. And that really struck home to me. But there's an interesting flip side to this. I've noticed that as I've worked the 12 steps and go to meetings and talk to people in the program, that I become much more willing to stand up for myself. So historically, I've been willing to put up enormous amounts of abuse. I've had abusive bosses and abusive friends and just abusive situations, and I just put up with it. It's familiar to me because of certain things that happened in my early childhood, and so you'd think that like a selfish, self-centered guy like me, that as part of that I wouldn't put up with any abuse because I'm just too selfish and self-centered. But that's not how it worked out. I put up with a tremendous amount of abuse, and I kind of put out the vibe that it was okay to abuse me. And when you sell yourself short, there's just no end of people who are willing to take advantage of you. I remember I was doing a show circa 2003, and my co-host said, Jimmy, he said, "Oh, I could completely see you as a battered husband." and you just put up with it. And you'd complain about it, but you'd just keep coming back for more. And he was right. Like, I've never been married. I've never been physically abused that I can recall. But just allowed like a lot of nasty people in my life to treat me and speak to me in a really nasty, disrespectful way. And so you'd think, as a selfish, self-centered person, that I wouldn't go for that, but I did. Now, why can't I ever see the chat anymore? Like, I want to be able to read the chat, and it's not showing up on my phone. So I'm using the YouTube app on my iPhone 7, and seems like more than half the time I can't see the chat anymore. I want to see the chat. I want to get the feedback. I want to get the challenges. Like, when I come to a stop, I want to read the bloody chat on my phone. So anyone can tell me why the chat doesn't show up. Like, the chat's going on. I know when I get home and look at the chat in my desktop, it will be there, but now on my phone it's just not there. Why the hell not? Annoying. Yep. Chat viewing options, top chat, live chat. None of them show up anything. It's disappointing. I want to see what you guys are saying. So, I'd have bosses who would just call me really demeaning names and treat me bad, and I'd work for them for years. Like, bosses who were like anger addicts and nasty and vituperative and just mean and cruel. And I just worked for them for years because somehow that just felt familiar to me. And it was like, that's what felt normal to me, is to be emotionally abused. And then, as I worked the 12 steps and did a complete and thorough moral inventory, and kind of came to terms with the wreckage of my past, and began to get a more clear understanding of the effect of my behaviors and words on other people, something happened as I became more cognizant of how I affected other people, and as a result I started treating other people with more respect and consideration. At the same time, I started treating myself with more respect and consideration. So for the 12 steps, I would just have these recurring like horrifying perspectives, like a lightning strike in the middle of a dark night. But suddenly I'd see everything clearly, and I'd just be horrified at my own behavior and the patterns in my life. I remember when I started weekly psychotherapy in 1998 with a therapist I saw on and off for the next 15 years. One of the first things she gave me was a handout on boundaries. I needed to learn boundaries because I grew up in foster care, so it wasn't safe. Boundaries weren't clear. Boundaries were violated. There were some pretty sick people in my early years who were in charge of me, and so I didn't grow up with good knowledge of boundaries. And so that's always been an issue for me. But I found once I started working the 12 steps, and I got a clearer picture of myself and a clearer understanding of the way that my words and deeds affected other people. And so I started treating other people with more consideration. Something interesting happened. I started treating myself with more consideration. And when I saw other people engaged in abusive behavior towards me, I stood up for myself, or I removed myself from those situations. And it came naturally to start taking care of myself, or to be a good friend to myself. I had a therapist who for years would try to get me to be a good friend to myself, but I didn't really comprehend what that meant. But when I started taking care about how I treated other people, started being concerned about the effects of my behavior on other people, at the same time then, it naturally flowed. If I cared about other people, I started caring for myself in a more accurate and healthy way. So when people would just verbally abuse me, I used to just kind of put up with it. And then as I started working the 12 steps, I either let people know that that's not appropriate, you're over boundary, or I just remove them from my life. And I've essentially created a life for myself now, which is just a happy life. Okay? There's no one in my life on an ongoing basis who makes me unhappy. I do a show 5 days a week with Kevin Michael Grace, and he is a pleasure to work with. Love working with Kevin. He's a righteous dude. He's prepared, he's organized, he's responsible. He knows the boundaries of the medium we're working in. He's got good judgment. He's unfailingly courteous, polite with me. So working with Kevin, complete pleasure. I'm doing a show now on Sundays, largely with Otto, Paul, and Claire Core. Again, two people are a pleasure to work with. I invite about half a dozen people on my daily show, Brundle Fly and Babylonian Hebrew and PK and Eki, and again, all people who are a pleasure to work with. And I just don't have anyone in my daily life who makes me unhappy. I've just removed those people from my life. And at the same time, when I start to feel that someone's taking advantage of me, I think about it. I try to make sure I'm in reality. I might bounce my concerns off someone else, but then I say, this isn't really working for me. Can we have a more equal relationship here? Okay, if I'm going to do X, Y, Z for you, then okay, you need to do something for me so that this feels more awkward, or you did this, it's inconvenienced me. Can you take care of the problem? And then if a week or 2 or 3 goes by, after a couple of weeks, I'll bring it up again. And it's really cool. And I just never thought that by developing care and concern for other people, that it would help me develop care and concern for myself. And I like myself these days. I like myself, and this has been true for several years now. Just almost all the time, I just genuinely like myself. I want to take good care of myself, and I want to stay away from people who are dangerous, and I just don't want anyone in my life who disturbs my sense of safety or my happiness. I just keep those people out of my life as much as possible. And I just have like this genuine sense, like down deep in my soul, that yeah, I deserve to be treated with respect. And I may have mouthed those words in the past, but it's only in the past few years that I could just genuinely, throughout my being, have this realization that I deserve to be treated with respect, just as I have a responsibility to treat other people with respect, consideration, kindness, understanding, and I would like the same. So, for example, I have online friends, and if they become abusive in my comment section, I will talk to them, or I will delete their comments, or I don't need to be made unhappy going on my YouTube page by people who are ostensibly my friends. That's one example. I don't put up with being caught in boring social situations for very long. Like if I'm at a dinner and I'm finding it boring, I leave. I much less often I get cornered or manipulated into doing things I don't want to do. Because I have more respect for myself, respect for my time. Generally speaking, unless I really enjoy the people that I'm going to be around, I would rather have my own company. I'd rather read a book. I'd rather just enjoy my own company than be around people I find annoying or boring. And I deserve that. I deserve to treat myself with consideration. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful result of taking a moral inventory of my own behavior, coming to terms with the moral wreckage of my past, making amends to people I've hurt, and the consequence of this was developing like a genuine sense of regard for myself and for my own welfare, and for treating myself with respect, and insisting that other people treat me with respect. And life is good. Those things go together. You treat other people with respect, consideration, you're going to treat yourself. Now it just seems incomprehensible to me that you can ignore other people's needs and concerns and consequences of your behavior and other people, but then stand up for yourself. I just don't think those two go together. I see this with highly developed people who treat others with respect, that they demand the same. And if you disrespect them, they will either call you on it, or they'll just cut you out of their life completely if they see that you're not worth the trouble. And so I can learn from that. That's why it's really important to have a constant in your life, like someone who consistently treats you with respect and regard. And so that gives you a good model, particularly if you didn't grow up with this kind of treatment by a parental figure or just other people in your life. But if you now, as an adult, you now have a constant, someone who consistently treats you respectfully, with consideration, then that can become your model. And anyone who doesn't live up to that kind of model, it's just not worth having in your life. So a lot of people can be really charming, psychopaths, meaning cluster B personality disorder people. So narcissists, histrionics, borderline personalities, antisocial personality disorder. People with these personality disorders can be incredibly charming at the beginning, but then very quickly they start trying to demean you and break you down. And if you have a constant in your life, like someone who just consistently treats you with the same sort of respect that they would want to be treated, then you have a measure for appropriate behavior. And if you got people in your life who are frequently just treating you with disrespect, disregard, then measure them up against your constant and get them the hell out of your life. Okay? So, for example, I'm thinking about one girlfriend who would just always, she was just filled with so much contempt for me. And she also thought I was a baby, like a real weakling, like a crybaby. And I knew that wasn't true. So this is a while ago. I knew that wasn't true. I knew that I wasn't worthy of that much contempt. I'd never had a girlfriend have this much contempt for me. And I also knew that I have a high pain threshold. I knew this from my physical therapist. When he did some very painful work with me, he noted that I have a very high pain threshold. And so I had a girlfriend who was saying I was a baby and a weakling and a wimp, and she just had so much contempt for me. And so I knew that she wasn't rooted in reality. And so I didn't have any sense that, hey, this girl was a real treasure that I wanted to have in my life for a long time either. So it helped me to kind of emotionally distance myself from this person. Bye-bye.